Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Actually, about a month ago, I got a phone call from our director of marketing, Kathy Westhouse, who's in the audience today, and asked, hey, would I like to speak at the Italian-American Sports Hall of Fame? Well, I thought, hey, I'm Italian. I played high school sports, played sports in college. I thought I might be getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I brought my stats with me. Well, she called me last night and asked, is your presentation, you all ready to go? About the Wisdom Way, and I'm going, well, it looks like I'm not getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. So thought I'd put that out there. So what we did was, we actually wrote a book, and everyone actually has a copy here. It's called The Wisdom Way. And we wanted to write a book that wasn't typical of a company that's been around for 140 years, 5 generations. We just didn't want to, tell the chronological history of Wisdom Adhesives, because I think it would make a finite set. It would be like, there'd be a few people very interested, but not a lot of people interested. So what we thought was we would delve into, what were the principles that really, guided the company in its 140 years. And thus, the book, The Wisdom Way, 6 Guiding Principles for Longevity and Success for a 5th Generation Company. It's tough to follow the governor. I was hoping to be on beforehand. You know what I mean? Okay, first, some family business statistics. Family businesses comprise of 90% of all businesses in North America. So really, you look at it, it's 62% of all U.S. total employment. Family businesses are really the backbone. They're the backbone of the economy. It's really the way to look at it. And there's some great companies here, Cargill, S.D. Johnson, Mars, that are family-run companies that have been around a long time. But by the 3rd generation, this is a fascinating statistic, only 12% of those family business companies are still family business owned. By the 4th generation, it's down to less than 3%. And by the 5th generation, so like a Wisdom Adhesives, there's not even statistics on it. It's so rare that it happens. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about Wisdom Adhesives. I think it's good. There's a couple slides on it. Wisdom Adhesives was founded in 1875. We're actually in our 140th year of business. Privately held, 5th generation owned and operated. The current owner, Jeff Wisdom, he's actually here today. He'll be receiving one of they look like the FedEx Cup trophies, don't they? So I know he doesn't golf, so I figured it'd be good to have that kind of trophy. But it's just the longest continuously running and operating adhesive manufacturer in the world, which is quite an honor. And leading global manufacturer of water-based and hot melt adhesives for packaging and paper converting and other industries. From a historical perspective, it was founded by Jeff's great-great-grandfather, Philip Wisdom, and it's really a Chicago-based company. Headquartered down on Canal Street in Chicago. The Pullman Company was the very first customer of Wisdom Adhesives, and we supplied adhesives to the graphic arts industry at the time, and actually delivered the products by horse and buggy. And we still do that a little bit today. So there's quite a history here. And then what we've grown into is a worldwide entity. Yes, we're a Chicago land-based company. We've got facilities in Elgin, Illinois, and throughout North America, but also Mexico, Canada, and then we've got wholly owned or partially owned partners in basically every continent and every major population area throughout the world. So we're truly a global company going from a company that started down on Canal Street. Now, over the years, at Wisdom Adhesives, we've experienced many ups and downs. So to say that you go from generation 1 to generation 5 is very easy to do. It's very difficult to do. And that's why I think there's like 12% after generation 3 and 3% and so on after generation 4. But this path to success wasn't always in a straight ascension. But the journey, it really took 5 generations to really make the company gel. And it's gelled tremendously over the last decade. And you can see this by a sales growth chart, just to give you some perspective. From 1875 to maybe somewhere in the 90s, it was a company that was struggling. There was a lot of people that put their blood, sweat, and tears, and I'm sure you've all kind of felt this at one point, being in a family business. But shortly after the 90s, the 2000s, the company really took off. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The dynamics in the marketplace, the right personnel in place, what we've learned from the 4 generations before. But it really took off, so that we have some very good symmetry as we head into our 140th year. We're at the $140 million budget for annual sales. Now, why listen to me about family business? I'm an executive at a family-run company, and a so-called industry expert. So I've participated in many aspects, from technical to sales to operations, you name it. I've been involved from an adhesive perspective. But when you look at it, being an executive and not a family member at a family-run company, and particularly a 5th-generation company. So 5th-generation family-run businesses are very rare, and to have an executive that's a non-family member probably makes it even rare. So my perspective, which I hope to convey to you, which is conveyed in the book, is really quite unique. Now, what is the Wisdom Way? The Wisdom Way serves 3 constituents, and the first and foremost is the customer. I think that gets lost in today's world. Without the customer, and we have this saying, the customer is king. It's the most important. If you don't have the customer if you're not taking care of the customer, you don't have a business. If you don't have customers, you don't have a business. In order to serve those customers, you've got to have a great team, and that's the employees, the most important resource. And then you also have to have the communities in which we operate. So those 3 constituents make up the Wisdom Way, which gets into the 6 principles. The 6 principles are made into a hexagon. And they consist of passion, which is really an overriding factor, action, reinvention, endurance, relationships, generosity. When you look at the book, if you need to fall asleep tonight while you've got insomnia, please read the book, and it'll help from that standpoint. But those are the six principles that make up the hexagon for the Wisdom Way, represented by a hexagon. And what is the meaning of the Wisdom Way hexagon? The hexagon has 6 sides with the 6 principles, and it's really the strongest of all chemical structures. We like to use the analogy that the strength of the hexagon is really the strength of Wisdom Adhesives. And you see hexagonal structures. What presentation wouldn't be complete without some little bit of chemistry in it? But they're lightweight and strong, and you see it naturally occurring, and you see it synthetically occurring. And really what they are, they're lightweight and very strong, holding over 20 times their strength. So beehives, graphite used for the aerospace industry. I saw some golf pictures up here for some of the members. Unlimited possibilities. I think it's increased people's golf games, so the older you get, the better you get. All this is very representative of what we believe is Wisdom Adhesives, and that's lightweight and strong. The cover of the book, which everyone has a copy of, is actually a picture of volcanic rock that was formed in the hexagonal shapes in Northern Ireland. And it's formed from the naturally occurring, when the volcanic rock froze over 1 million years ago. And so we thought it was very representative of the 6 principles, the Wisdom Way, and the cover, and thus the cover for the book. Okay, principle 1. And this is by far the greatest principle to have, and that's passion. Successful people do what they're good at because they have passion. If you do what you're good at, you're going to have passion, and vice versa. If you have passion, you're going to be successful, and you're going to be doing what you're good at. I know that sounds very simplistic, but if you just follow those rules, they really take hold. Passion, the number 1 principle. We like to think that successful people have passion, no question about it. Passion equals action. Action just happens to be the 2nd principle. Action equals passion. In ancient Roman times, the way they measured a person's life, whether it was a success or not at their funeral, was a simple thumbs up or thumbs down based on whether they had passion. So you can imagine that. You can live your whole life, and it's going to come down to all your peers that show up at your funeral. If you had passion, you led a successful life. We're given a thumbs up. We use the same mentality, if you will, with recruiting personnel, promoting personnel, is really, there may be some shortcomings in knowledge and gaps in ability, but if they have passion, we believe that they're going to be very successful. And so passion, we want to hire, recruit, promote. That's the type of people we like to have at Wisdom Adhesives. If you look at it, in researching this book, which, granted, maybe there wasn't a ton of research, but in researching the book, we did ask this one question. We went to everyone. Name me one person who's successful that wasn't passionate. And that one person could tell us a person that was successful that wasn't passionate. And so there's great examples here of all these great people are certainly passionate and very successful. Steve Jobs, you have to have a lot of passion for what you are doing because it's so hard. If you don't, any rational person would give up. And I think that's very critical. It's a poignant statement. And at Wisdom Adhesives, we're very fortunate. Our CEO and president, he can make up for all the shortcomings for himself and practically the company because of his passion. And it overcomes all obstacles. So again, passion, I know there's 6 principles, but passion is really the overriding, that's the energy that'll fuel the rest of the principles. Principle 2, action. Actually, if you do happen to read the book, in each section, there's like pearls of wisdom, we call it. So there's little tidbits on each type of principle. And action is represented by several different types, but there's 4 that I think are very important. One is to get an early W. What does that mean? Whether you've got a daily task, a monthly task, a yearly task, a quarterly task, whatever the task is, don't always attack the hardest thing first. Do something that you know you can be good at because you're going to be successful at it. Success breeds success. It allows you to attack, by applying that, it allows you to attack more difficult problems. Performers perform. This is a great one. Like, if you're a sales guy, sell. If you manufacture. Do what you're good at. You'll be successful. It goes back to the passion. Act like you're already there. This is kind of the opposite of the paralysis by analysis. This is the exact opposite of that. Instead of figuring it out and trying to go from step A to step B, just pretend like you're already at step B and act like you're already there, perform like you're already there. You'll be more successful. And then lastly, blocking and tackling. We deal with a lot of organizations, be it customers or vendors, and we see so many companies that falter because they don't do the basics. And at Wisdom, we try to do the basics. Block and tackle. That's the most important. Get your team to block and tackle. Action. Fighter pilot mentality. Concentrating on what's in front of you, constantly evaluating the current status, and making adjustments accordingly. This is a concept we use well at Wisdom Adhesives, the fighter pilot mentality. Kind of the part B of the fighter pilot mentality is, you ever noticed, like in a car, the windshield is much greater than the rear view mirror? I think you can learn things, from a historical perspective, and the rear view mirror will give you that. But the windshield, that's where you should be looking. Look forward. Combine that with the fighter pilot mentality, and it leads to success. Look forward. Now, at Wisdom Way, we have what we feel is about the best customer service in our industry versus our peers. And why is that? We do the basics. This is blocking and tackling. Our Wiz service team. Calls returned in 2 hours or less. Shipments made in 24 to 48 hours. Orders confirmed within 2 hours. 24/7 availability. On-site, on time, every time. I mean, there's nothing complicated about this at all. It has nothing to do with adhesives. You could be selling anything. You could be manufacturing anything. You could be selling any kind of service. You set criteria that's as good or better than your competition, you're going to win. We use this to win. We're renowned for our customer service in our industry. Now, ownership selling. This is something that we started maybe a decade ago because we know it works. So we're competing against companies that don't necessarily use ownership selling. So it allows us to get the job done, making an offer you can't refuse. This is very critical to our business, and it's helped fuel that growth on that growth chart. Principle 3, reinvention, adapt or die. Reinvention the wisdom way. Like during the Great Recession, we reinvented our business. And if you look at adhesives, it's a great cross-section of the economy. Even though adhesives aren't used in a tremendous amount, but it's used in just about every industry. So we deal with packaging, we deal with converting, but you get a feel for what other industries are doing. They might be making boxes or help make boxes that go in the automotive industry, or the food industry, or the medical industry, all these different industries. So you get a feel for how the economy is doing by just selling adhesives. So we didn't know how bad the recession would be during the Great Recession, but we knew we had to do something. And back in 2007, 2008, we did two things that we still employ today that really helped the company take off even further and set the groundwork for the future. And that was refocusing on our core products and our core technologies and basically putting everyone in the company on the sales team. Reinvention. If you look at some of these companies, all these companies, they constantly reinvent. Apple, Nike, Domino's, Netflix, they've reinvented, and they've been successful at doing so. If you look at these companies, Blockbuster, unfortunately BlackBerry, I used the BlackBerry forever, and Xerox, Polaroid, those companies aren't around. They didn't reinvent. They didn't keep up with the times. In fact, we had an industry expert consultant we had in maybe a week ago. He made the comment, Wisdom Adhesives is the Netflix versus the Blockbusters, which is our competition. Which, I mean, he could pay no finer compliment. And it made us feel like we're on the right track. Principle 4, endurance. Endurance is one of the most difficult disciplines, but it is the one who endures that the final victory comes. Buddha. Babe Ruth, the Bambino. It's hard to beat a person who never gives up. Now, he probably quoted this back in the 20s. Maybe it was 1927 when they won the World Series, had a great year. But I think he was talking about Wisdom Adhesives today. Because if I look at Wisdom Adhesives, again, from my unique point of view, that's what we do. We never give up. Winston Churchill, probably the most important person of the 20th century, he never gave up. Never give up. And of course, there's some tremendous examples here with all the companies that are the centennial companies. I mean, endurance has been a tremendous part of these businesses. I'm sure they've employed all the principles that we talk about here with the Wisdom Way, whether formal or informal. The challenge at Wisdom Adhesives for endurance, and really I think Liz talked about it, at length today, is the next generation. The next 140 years. Now, there's a reason in the hexagon why passion and endurance are at opposite ends. If you want a big hexagon, you got to have a lot of passion. If you have a lot of passion, you're going to have a lot of endurance. If you don't have a lot of passion, you're not going to have a lot of endurance. So, endurance and passion equals long-term success. And there's some great examples of this. Like in business. I mean, Wisdom Adhesives is a no finer example of this than endurance. I mean, you're not around 140 years unless you do a lot of things right. Now, you may do a lot of things wrong, but you're going to do a lot of things right, and that's going to give the endurance. Or in your personal life, Pooner. There's actually, I think, some Pooner books back there, but Pooner is actually my dad. He's actually a 86-year-old fisherman from northern Minnesota, fishes for walleyes. He's fished for walleye his whole life. He's the best fisherman in his area. So northern Minnesota, he's the best fisherman still at age 86. He's done it because he's got a passion for fishing, for walleyes, and it's given him the endurance to do this. He can outfish people, half his age and go out every day and fish. So you can apply these to your life. You probably do. It's just a matter of with the terminology. Principle 5, relationships. So John Hancock, the signer and one of the founding fathers of our country, the greatest ability is to get along with others and to influence their actions. Many of you have seen the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. If you look at Butch and Sundance individually, Butch, he's really the brains behind the operation. Sundance was the talent. They knew their strengths and weaknesses. They became successful, albeit bank robbers. And then, this is a great one. I'm originally from northern Minnesota. Herb Brooks, he was the coach for the 1980 U.S. Olympic team that beat Russia. Do you believe in miracles? You win with people. The quality of the people is the most important aspect of building a team. Herb Brooks. I mean, really, if you build the right team, you don't have to have the best talent. You just have to have people with passion that work well together. And really, that's what we feel it's taken us 140 years, but we feel that's what we have, a great team. And then relationships, the Wisdom Way. Again, it goes back to this. Customers, employees, communities. These all go together. If you don't have customers, forget it. There's no business. We're not at this meeting. Employees, communities, they're all very important. And then the last principle, generosity. The ultimate personal and professional long-term goal, long-term strategy. John Wooden, perhaps the greatest college basketball coach of all time, maybe the best coach of all time. You can't have a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you. I mean, I think that's the definition of generosity. And we do it in a number of ways at Wisdom Adhesives. Like traditionally, there's the Wisdom Family Foundation. We give a certain amount of pre-tax profits to the Elgin area, the Chicagoland area, and other communities in which we operate, have facilities, supporting youth activities, education. We also do it from a business standpoint. We have an incubator program in which we've had 21 ideas since inception, actually 6 last year. We turned 2 of these into viable business opportunities. We do this by taking in ideas from various entities, and we provide the resources that Wisdom Adhesives can do to see if these are viable businesses. Now, applying the 6 principles of the Wisdom Way. If you do, you can grow from an acorn to an oak tree. And actually, one of our partners that we recently signed up over the last couple of years in Australia, a young person, he went out, had 0% market share, applied these principles, worked closely with Wisdom Adhesives. He's grown that into a viable entity in Australia and has become one of our valued partners. So then, kind of lastly, how can I incorporate passion, action, reinvention, endurance, relationships, generosity, and how can I apply that into my life and into my business? I challenge you to do that. And I'll give an example as myself. I know very little or almost nothing about most things. But what I do know is adhesives. I know that very well. I've done it for a very long time. I know all the different aspects of it. That allows me to fuel other activities that I don't know. And I think that's something that everyone can apply, and everyone can apply individually. So I think, in closing, I think Abe summed it up very well. He was kind of like, since he was around in the 1860s, he was the preamble to the 1875s of Wisdom Adhesives. When you have passion and determination, you can accomplish anything. I think he touched on it even then, 150 some odd years ago, that passion is the key. So I think everyone has a book, so feel free to read that whenever you feel like it. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.